Evening, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring the meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. This is the April 19th, 2022 meeting of the Lake Harbor City Municipal Land Use Board. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, adequate notice of this meeting was provided by posting on the City Hall bulletin board and by notification to our newspapers of record. And I ask the Secretary to make this announcement part of the public record. And Don, if you would, call, please.
Mayor Cincinnati, here. Mr. Timbers. Marie Johns. John Clark.
Here.
Gladys Torres. Here. Molyneux. Dennis McKenna.
Here.
Michael McKenna.
Here.
Jack Peterson.
Here.
Todd Walker.
Here.
Mr. Dixon. Mr. Bear. Mr. Manos.
Here.
Mr. McGowan.
Here.
And Secretary here.
Thank you, Don. We have minutes of meeting January 18th. The motion to approve. Second. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We don't have a resolution to approve, do we? There was an informal applicant, Jim McCallum. Is he here?
Oh, I'm here, right here.
So it might get lengthy, so we were going to ask you to go first if you would like.
Yeah, sure. So I come up there? Or?
Yeah. Mr. McCallum is here regarding informal review on the Acme property. So,
Yes. So I have a client that wants to put like a warehouse in here. You know, we were just wondering what can go there and what is the town wanting to see there.
This is the property, if I could just interrupt that, we just gave a resolution to for distribution.
And we're still looking into that too. That's also something we're looking into. But you know, these people get licenses for marijuana. We talked earlier, and they don't have the proper funding or whatever. You know, so there's a lot of upfront money that needs to be put into the property if they do that. And you know, that's a big property. So we were looking into it, but you know, we haven't really, you know, used for warehouses.
and Ryan could speak to the zoning and what is
Yeah, so
approved.
the properties in the highway commercial zone, if you look at the land use tables or outlines what the permitted uses are, anything in the retail commercial or the highway commercial zones are permitted. Warehouse typically would not be permitted, we have to get the use variance, but I think the board would love to see the property sort of, you know, recovered and sort of brought back up and parking lot repaved and see some use of the property. So, you know, given it's been active for 25 or so years now, I think the board would be receptive to do some things that are not heavy manufacturing, not storing things outside.
Yeah, no outdoor storage.
Yeah, sort of utilizing the.
You know, may propose to put up another building or, you know, an additional, whatever, at least to make it bigger.
Sorry.
You know, there's a lot of heat right now for warehousing, so we get a lot of calls on that, so it would be, everything would be stored inside, no outdoor storage.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, we have to report, but we definitely need use variance, that's not something we use. So it's in a redevelopment area, so you could, in theory, go through the redevelopment process, pick up a modified redevelopment plan with the city, bring it back to here for concurrence, and then, you know, come back, so we have two avenues.
Yeah.
We've sort of determined if someone purchases the property and they're not the redeveloper, then they are subject to the underlying zoning, which is the former zoning before the redevelopment process started.
Okay.
That property is at
Okay. And that's fine, so we're just entertaining them, because they called the township, they said the township said no, there's no warehouses permitted here.
Well, yeah, and it's not a permitted.
Right, so there's a process to go through, I understand that. Okay, that's pretty much it, like, for now, we're just trying to get a decent, good tenant in
Yeah, no, like I said, it's been vacant for a long time, which we see, we don't see it.
Have you purchased the property, Sean?
there. Yeah, I know the contract, yeah. So that's basically it, I called the mayor today, she's thinking of the meeting tonight, so I better pop by this one.
Yeah, well, and
And
this
we're
is,
still entertaining the other people too, but that is, pretty much what it is.
right, yeah, this is the board you'd be in front of seeking use variance, so I mean, it's.
Okay.
I'm gonna
Yeah,
tell
and
you-
I'll find out more about it also, because, it's just, indoor storage. Basically what it is, and there might be a plan for it in the building.
Well, that'd be the question is, number of employees, hours of operation, heavy truck traffic, all those are the kinds of issues that we want to talk about and see. It's obviously, it's along the city's highway commercial frontage there, so they're not looking for, a bunch of tractor trailers sitting outside.
Right, I understand.
That kind of stuff. You can have uses that are industrial inside, but don't appear to be industrial outside.
So I can go online and see what's the highway.
Yeah, I can, if you want to
send
leave your email address.
Yeah.
with Donna, I can,
Donna, can you take it down and then, it's a Trinity, Trinity.
Warehouse will require trucking and parking and.
Well, that's all the kinds of things we have to talk about.
Okay,
Exactly. How intensive and what are we talking about?
Kind of depends on the residential area. I know it's on a highway, but.
Yeah, the building itself is also set back.
I understand that.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying, it's set back up to the clear residential.
But at one time it was approved for a car dealership, I believe.
So it was I think the last redevelopment plan was a used auto dealer mall, where the guy was gonna come down to
I saw the plans on that, yeah.
And he sort of thought that most of them would be empty, would be people from out of state just hanging a license here. There's a state requirement for a 72 square foot office.
Oh, yes, okay.
So he was just trying to make minimum size offices so that people could legally qualify for it.
Okay, awesome,
So,
all right.
but yeah, I mean, that's, like I said, you'd be in front of this board, no matter what route. you
Okay,
take.
absolutely, okay, awesome, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, item of new business, application 2201, Shore Real Estate 1 LLC. This is 1225 Waivers Pike.
Chairman, members of the board, Michael Malinsky of Hvac Platform LLP, on behalf of the applicant Shore Real Estate 1 LLC. We're here tonight for preliminary and final waiver site plan, variance, and waiver approval to construct a 4,220 square foot liquor store and second story 1,040 square foot 3-bedroom residential apartment on lot 11.02 of lot 619, also known as 1225 Waivers Pike. The property currently contains a 3,910 square foot liquor store and ground level 3-bedroom residential apartment. It's in your highway commercial zone. There is one submission waiver we are requesting tonight. It's from section 170-31A1-5 and section 170-31B1 of your site plan checklist, which is a requirement that the site plan show all driveways and streets within 200 feet of the site. We expect the request in accordance with the recommendation of your engineer that waiver be granted and this application be deemed complete, so that we may proceed forward with our preliminary and final major site plan variance and waiver approval. If you need to hear any testimony with regard to the waiver, I can have Andy Schaefer with me from Schaefer National Siding, or you have your.
Yeah, I mean, we reference a report of what we have in check, they show how.
Complete this item with the deem it complete, on one checklist waiver. Technically, it's a preliminary issue, so we should probably just, make a motion on the second to grant that, submission waiver. Click all in favor, and it'll be proceed.
Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is carried.
I'll just make it that Mr. Timbers is here. He came before the application started, and I just said, no, we want to it's on the record.
And what we're looking to do this evening, if we're looking to actually demolish the existing building and reconfigure the site and put up a brand new building with landscaping, fix some of the ingress and egress or repair site circulation, add landscaping, decrease the building coverage. And although we're going to be making improvements to the site and actually bringing the property more into conformance with your current zoning, we are still looking for several design waivers and several variances. We're actually looking for 3 design waivers. They are from section 170-38B1B and section 170-38B6B to allow the entrances and exits to be less than 50 feet from the driveway edge or the nearest right-of-way line. From section 170-38B6A to allow 2 driveways in the Waivers type where 1 is permitted. Again, as you'll see from the plan, as will be testified to by Mr. Schaefer, what we're doing is we're narrowing and better defining the entrances along the Waivers pipe with curbing. We're also eliminating the entrance from San Francisco Avenue. We're also repositioning and better defining the entrance from 12th Terrace. We're also requiring a design waiver from section 170-110B to allow off-street parking in the front yard. It currently is in the front yard. There's 3 front yards to this property. That's where the parking is, but again, we need that design waiver because we're proposing coming in for a new application. There are 11 variances associated with this project. There are 4 associated related to setbacks and buffers. There's 3 related to setbacks from section 170-18HC to allow front yard setback of 34.5 feet from 12th Terrace where 50 feet is required. Right now, there's an existing front yard setback from 12th Terrace of 19.7 feet. We're actually bringing the property more into conformance. We're adding an additional approximately 15 feet to that setback. Section 170-18HC to allow front yard setback of 37.5 feet from the Waivers pipe, where 50 feet is required. From section 170-18HC to allow rear yard setback of 15 feet, where 30 feet is required. Again, the existing rear yard setback at this property is only 6.4 feet, so we're more than doubling the existing rear yard setback with this new building. And the buffer variance we're asking for is from section 170-62D2 for the requirement to provide a 5-foot wide landscape buffer along each property line. We are going to provide some landscaping and put increased landscaping to make it better than what it is now, but we still need a variance from that requirement. We also need 2 variances, one related to parking and one related to a loading area. We need a variance from section 170-62C1C to allow a truck loading area 30 feet in length, where 45 feet is required. As you will hear from the testimony of Mr. Schaefer, the trucks that will be delivering to this site are about 25 feet, so 30 feet is more than sufficient to meet our delivery needs. We also need a variance from section 170-62G to allow 23 off-street parking spaces where 28 are required. Again, there's only existing currently with the liquor store and 3-bedroom apartment, 16 parking spaces. So we're adding an additional 7 parking spaces, bringing the site more into conformity with the current zoning. Then there are 5 variances related strictly to signage. There are variants from section 170-71A1 and section 170-71B2A to allow 4 wall-mounted signs where 1 and 3 are permitted respectively. From section 170-71A2 and section 170-71B2B to allow an aggregate wall sign area of 160 square feet where 40 square feet and 25 square feet are permitted respectively. From section 170-71A3 and section 170-71B2C to allow the 4 wall-mounted signs to have a height of 4 feet 4 inches, where 2 feet is the max wall sign height permitted. From section 170-71A4B to allow the 2 projecting signs to project from the wall at an angle less than 90 degrees and to be 20 feet 6 inches above grade, where 20 feet above grade is the max permitted. And our last variance relates to signage is from section 177-71B2B to allow 2 projecting signs for non-permitted. I have with me tonight 3 witnesses. I have Andrew Schaefer from Schaefer National Siding, who is my professional engineer, professional planner. I have Thomas Ingrain, registered architect, who is my architect, and I have a representative of the applicant Shore Real Estate One LLC, Divkar Nedagani, who we'll call Dave. Good by Dave. If you like at this time, I can have all three witnesses sworn in at once, and we can proceed.
Why don't you just go down the line, each state your name and business address for the record, and I'll swear you in. And Dave, when you state your name, maybe spell it too, if you could, if you wouldn't mind. Okay.
Just before we do this, I'll make it easy. It's Divkar, Divakar, Netagani, Nethagani.
Just go down the line, state your name and address for the record, and I'll swear the three in together.
Divakar Netagani,
Mr. Schaefer,
Andrew Schaefer, the address is 1425 Cantillon Boulevard, Mason, Maine.
Mr. Cedrine,
Thomas Sedrain, the Sedrain Group, 201 Tilton Road, Suite 5B, Murphyfield, New Jersey.
do you raise your right hand, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes,
I do.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I believe Mr. Schaefer has testified before this board previously. I would, unless you want to hear his credentials on the record, I ask that he be recognized as an expert in the field of engineering and planning, qualified to give testimony before this board. Mr. Schaefer, can you please explain the current site as it exists today?
it appears to be, I don't know this for a fact, to be a 3-bedroom house that was converted or added on to make a liquor store sometime very far in the past, probably in the 50s, I'm not sure. We don't know the history of it. I'm kind of outlining the shape of the existing building right now. And it occupies about the same square footage, a little less actually than we're looking for now. However, it is all in one story. We're proposing increasing the liquor store slightly by 10% and then putting the apartment, 3-bedroom apartment on top of it. So that creates an efficiency having the second story apartment above the first floor liquor store, which frees up a little, not a lot, but a little more space for the circulation. And I have to tell you that it was very difficult to figure out how to work this circulation out. Because my original plan was that one entrance on the Waivers site. We had done the survey, we started the conceptual planning of the site plan, and then I drove up by one day, the DOT had just completely rebuilt their entrance with two. So we're making it work. It's a little better than it used to be. I think the entire frontage before was completely open to the Waivers Pike, and now it's just a little more discreet, and it has a 37-foot wide opening and a 31-foot wide opening. And it had two other entrances, one on 12th Terrace and one in San Francisco. So we were able to close one of them to create more parking and lessen the impact to the neighborhood, which is residential across the street. At least across the 12th, it's commercial. And we lined this driveway up with the one across the street too, to try and make things a little more efficient and less consternation for the people trying to use the site to begin with. We've created a sidewalk around the entire perimeter so you can get around the site. The parking is better defined and there is more of it than previously. And every variance that we are asking for points originally to an existing non-conforming requirement in terms of setbacks and buffers and everything else. However, every single one of them has been left the same or improved. Almost in every case, they've been improved or lessened, if you will. So the variances are still required in a technical sense that we still don't conform and we're coming in for a site plan, but we have improved. Now the other aspect of this project is that we're replacing an old building with a new one. So architecturally, which I'll leave to the architect, it's going to appear much better and be a more pleasant addition to the neighborhood than what's there now. One other major aspect is there's a freestanding sign right here at this point in time that actually encroaches into the right of way. It's fairly big and it creates a traffic hazard. So we took it out. And as we'll explain later, we have a projecting sign on angles to kind of replace that. Rather than having it come straight out, we did put it on an angle to start making it look more architecturally part of the building rather than just a sign sticking straight out from the building. And the architect will be able to explain how that looks. we recognize that your ordinance doesn't even begin to address how something like this works. But hopefully you'll see that it's a benefit to the whole process, especially since we can eliminate the freestanding time that is there now, and just create more free flow of traffic. We've made some of the radii, and I'll bore you with that part now, and the distances between things so that the trucks, this relatively small delivery trucks, can get through the site without having to do K-turns and things of that sort. They can get back out on the 12th, and not San Francisco, but and we're back on the Waivers Pike. That about covers how the site works.
Explain the loading area and the size of the trucks that we'll be getting for delivery.
So we have actually it's about a 31, 32-foot loading area that I'm pointing to right now in depth. And the trucks that they have delivered from multiple vendors are 25 feet. So they're relatively short. They have roll-up sides. I provided a delivery ramp here so the hand trucks, once they're loaded, can be brought in without climbing stairs. Now, why would that be important? Well, just think about a hand truck loaded with boxes and bottles. When you go upstairs, it's going to make a lot of noise. We're not in a neighborhood of residential, but we're right next to it. And the zone line's right here. And in fact, there is a house here. And I'll reiterate what the attorney said, is we are increasing the setback, rear setback to this residence by quite a bit.
We're doubling, more than doubling.
More than doubling, yes. So that is part of the reason we did what we did here. We have the trash and recycling here. That's probably going to be picked up once a week. And I'll offer this before anybody asks about it. Unlike a bar, the recycling is going to be probably 100% cardboard. So it's quiet. And I've done a number of approvals from bars and restaurants and so forth. And one of the issues is how do you treat the recyclables? When you're taking a barrel full of bottles out at 2 a.m. and dumping them into a container, it makes a lot of noise. And fortunately, in this case, since this is where the liquor emanates, it's not going to be handling empty bottles and glass recyclables.
And we're also moving the building 1 foot over, and that's why this is now 34.5
Right.
instead of 35.5 for pedestrian access and also for the handicap ramp. Is that correct?
Yes, so Ryan, and just to make a little more space for the handicap ramp, I want to move the building this way. So the variance we're asking for, rather than 35.5 feet to 12 terrace, we'd like to make that 34.5. Still substantially less than the existing conditions.
And deliveries, they'll only occur 2 days a week on Wednesdays and Thursdays, is that correct?
That's correct. So the deliveries are pretty much constrained to Wednesdays and Thursdays, 2 to 3 times a day maximum, 25-foot trucks, and usually occurs between noon and 3 in the afternoon, which is one of the lightest times in terms of traffic for parking within the parking lot. So in the evening is when probably your peak traffic for retail sales are going on.
And the hours of operation?
Hours of operation for 6 days a week, 10 to 9 p.m. And then on Sunday, it would be 10 to 7 p.m., 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And then in terms of employees, there's 4 to 6 employees that they plan on having on staff with a maximum of 2 on any one shift. So that reflects on the parking and the amount of circulation in the parking lot.
Except on the weekends. On the weekends, Friday through Sunday, there may be 3 employees.
There may be 3 employees then.
And of the 6 employees, we're talking about 4 full-time employees and 2 part-time employees.
That's correct.
In reference to security, the property and the building, there'll be 22 cameras operating 24 hours a day that'll both cover the exterior of the building and the interior liquor store portion of the building. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And this will be monitored by an outside company, correct?
That is correct also.
Okay. And you've seen the general comments from the board engineer, and we can comply with all of the general comments set forth in section 5 of the engineer's report.
Right. I mean, there's really only one that I have some comment, and Brian and I have already talked about that, and that are the lights out in front. They'll be shielded to prevent glare, but not shielded to prevent light from spilling into the Waivers pipe. Normal lighting operations for a parking lot would include distances beyond the edge of the property line, so that it makes it a little safer for ingress and egress at the nighttime. But obviously, shielding will be required to prevent glare for the people driving by.
Now, also explain the landscaping we're proposing for this site.
All right, the landscaping we're proposing, along 12th Terrace, we have most of the 5-foot buffer that's required, except for the driveway area. Along the White Horse Pike, it's almost all concrete. We are taking some of the concrete out in the middle, as well as we're going to take some out in the area Ryan and you and I discussed here. We're going to take a section of that concrete out, and probably this parking space too, which we'll discuss, to prevent people from driving in the depressed curb through there. Along San Francisco, we'll provide landscaping, but it's going to be in the right of way. We will still maintain it. So it'll have the appearance of having a vegetated buffer around the 3 frontages. However, not all of it is within the actual property itself. I have to say too that a number of the newer properties in the area, because of site limits and size, lot size constraints, have pushed their parking all the way to the property line in the same way that we have. So it's a balance. What we've done here is a balance of what works and what looks good, and provides safe ingress and egress, as well as manageable circulation and parking.
We're also going to provide a pedestrian access from San Francisco.
Yes,
correct?
we're gonna, from San Francisco, Brian, we talked about that. The ADA requires that we provide a sidewalk to our sidewalk, so that somebody traversing the sidewalk in a wheelchair can get to and into the site without traversing the parking lot itself.
Yeah, I think you could go from there or straight out the front with just a crosswalk across your driveway.
And we can do that too, a crosswalk across the front, and we haven't evaluated exactly how we're gonna do that.
Well, we'll work with your engineer to amend it to create a pedestrian walkway that's satisfactory to him and his sole discretion. If he wants it here, we'll make it here. If he would like it in San Francisco, we'll make it in San Francisco. Whatever, we're fine with working with your engineer on that. Whatever's his preference.
Just to clarify, one other thing that went over there, on the existing plan, there is no landscaping shown along the San Francisco Avenue frontage. That's one thing we talked about. The ordinance does require a 5-foot landscaping buffer. And they, so that what we just mentioned is they would add plantings to just outside of the property line along the right of way, one between the sidewalk and parking area to sort of provide that same landscaping buffer.
And our hope would be that we could provide that at a later time for Ryan to administratively approve. I mean, we have other revisions to make anyway to resubmit for it. So.
But we'll agree that we'll
Yes.
comply with Ryan's suggestions regarding landscaping and his sole discretion, whatever he would like to see on there. But that will work with him on that. Now, there are several variances. Let's talk about the 3 setback variances and 1 landscape buffer variance that you heard me explain. Please explain how the C1 and C2 criteria, positive criteria, are satisfied with regard to those 4 variances.
Well, the cheap way and easy way out on that is we are improving all of the setbacks and all the variance requirements that are there now. We are improving compared to what's there in terms of existing conditions.
Okay. Based on the changes we're making to access, based on the eliminating one of the access ways, adding the parking, and changing the site circulation, does this represent a better alternative from the public safety standpoint to promote that purpose of zoning?
Clearly it does. In terms of the existing conditions, the parking lot is laid out a little strangely, because again, I believe it's a converted house, and 4 driveways, which it currently has, makes things a little confusing, and it lessens the impact on the residences across the street.
And because it's actually decreasing the building coverage and increasing some of the setbacks, are we also promoting the purpose of providing adequate light, air, and open space that we're currently existing?
We are improving the issue of providing adequate light, air, and open space. And I also need to comment while you're in that area that we have reduced the overall impervious coverage of the site as compared to existing.
And also with the fact that we are taking, down a building that is, I guess, not very visually pleasant, and putting up a brand new building, would you say we're promoting a desirable visual environment with the changes we're making, with the increased landscaping, with the new building, and with the site improvements?
Clearly, yes, I agree.
Now also with regard to those 4 variances, we have to establish the negative criteria. Is it your opinion, as a professional engineer, and professional planner in the state of New Jersey, that those 4 variances can be granted without a substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan?
It is my opinion, yes.
I don't wanna interrupt you, but just, so I'm keeping track. You got a front yard setback to 12 terrace, there's a rear yard setback, perimeter buffering, what's the fourth one?
There's the, for regarding the buffer and the setback, there's the, front yard from 12 Terrace, there's the front yard from Waivers Pike, there's the rear yard, then there's the 5-foot buffer.
Do we have a list of these 11 variances?
Actually, they're on the plan and they're in Ryan's letter.
In Ryan's letter, yes.
Recall that, actually, I have a couple more.
Yeah, he found a few more.
Yeah. That's my job. We didn't get a Ryan's letter in the packet, that's why I'm asking.
It was emailed. I emailed it.
Oh.
I got it after the packet.
Okay. No, I looked at it on my phone, I just don't want to.
Yeah, well, that's, I'll pull it up on here. The setback to the Waivers Pike is
37.5. So, yes.
Yeah, that's,
Take a picture and paste it down.
Now, let's discuss the one variance related to off-street parking and the one related to the loading area length. Please explain how the positive criteria is satisfied. And with regard to the parking, I guess we should come to an agreement. I'm assuming we're going to eliminate that space in accordance with Ryan's
Yes.
review? Okay, so then that changes that variance. We're actually providing to allow 22 off-street parking spaces where 28 are required. But again, existing currently is 16, so we're bringing it more into compliance with the code by adding those 6 additional spaces. But with regard to that, please explain to the board again how the positive and negative criteria are satisfied with regard to the loading area and the parking, off-street parking.
Well, it's all couched in the fact that this business already exists, and it's gonna continue to exist with the new building, with the same vendors. So we already know that we have 5, 6, 7 at most deliveries per week, concentrated in the middle of the week and concentrated in the middle of the day, with 25-foot long trucks and providing a 30-foot wide or long loading zone. And beyond that, we're accommodating the side doors that open up on these things so they can wheel their hand carts in without making a lot of noise.
And the current site doesn't have a defined
Doesn't have any of that.
loading zone.
No.
And this will add a defined loading zone along with a delivery ramp, so it makes it easier for deliveries to get in there, correct?
Yes, it does. And
with-
safer.
And with regard to the parking, again,
So we're looking at a 10% increase in the square footage of the liquor store itself, as well as maintaining the same size residence we have now, but increasing the parking. So again, we don't meet the parking requirements, but we have improved what is considered compared to existing. And they haven't, we were by there enough to see that the parking lot is never full. Well, okay, Christmas and a few other holidays probably does early in the afternoon, but
and again, do you believe that these 2 variances related to the off-street parking and the loading area can be granted without substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan or substantial detriment to the public good?
that is my opinion, yes. But beyond that, it's still a marked improvement compared to what's operating with today.
And again, do you believe that all the purposes of zoning are also promoted by the granting of these 2 variances they previously testified?
I do. And beyond some of the hardship involved here, it is a relatively small lot, while it still complies in lot area for the use. 3 frontages create a huge encumbrance to the use of the land.
And does the fact that we have 3 front yards, technically, we front on 3 streets, go towards the C1 criteria?
Yes, and if I can point out, I'm covering right now with my fingers the front yard setback, or the setback lines that are permitted there, which doesn't leave much. So,
And then technically, all we have is front yard and a rear yard, we don't have any side
side
yards.
yards, and the side yards are the most beneficial for use of parking in the building.
Next, let's discuss the 5 sign variances. I know you said we're getting rid of the pylon sign, which is probably an eyesore right now, and putting, no offense, Dave, but I visited it. And actually, not gonna have a pylon sign.
That's correct.
We're gonna have wall-mounted signs and the two projecting signs, and the projecting signs are gonna take the place of in essence, the
Freestanding
pylon
sign.
sign, the freestanding pylon sign. So can you please explain to the board how the C1 and C2 criteria again? Well, the C1 criteria, you already indicated about the configuration of the site, and do you believe that that same testimony satisfies the positive under the C1 criteria for the signs?
I do, because it compacts the signs into the architecture of the building as opposed to imposing the site. And a freestanding sign, I don't think it would take too much obvious thinking to figure out that there's just nowhere for it to go without creating a circulation issue.
And the fact that we front on, in essence, have three front yards that the wall-mounted signs need to be able to be seen from the street.
That's correct.
Okay. And please explain how the C2 criteria is satisfied as well with regard to the signage.
In terms of,
Is it for the same testimony that you provided before, and the fact that now it also, the projecting signs, would you say that they need to project the way they are so that motoring public can see and have enough time to
Yes.
stop and pull into the site?
and that's clear, in terms of the size of the sign, in order to have letters large enough to be able to be seen at the speed of 40, I think it's 45 miles an hour, 45 or 35 at this point, but it's fast enough that the letters can be large enough so you can see far enough away, okay, there's the liquor store I'm looking for, I have time to slow down. That's essentially what that means, yes. So it's in deference to the public safety, that the size of the sign is set where it is.
And again, we provide a desirable visual environment because we're getting rid of the pylon sign and we're gonna have only wall-mounted signs at this point.
That's correct.
Okay. Also, with regard to the negative criteria, do you think the 5 variances related to the signs that I stated in the beginning could be granted without substantial detriment to the public good or substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance?
And yes, I do, and compared to the existing conditions, I believe it actually enhances those conditions of public safety.
And in fact, the master plan calls out that there's a significant portion in the HC zone of structures that are deteriorated, vacant, abandoned, or underutilized. And do you think that by taking this site that has deteriorated over the years and putting this new building and also making these site improvements would actually promote that purpose in the master plan?
Yes, I do.
I have no more questions for Mr. Schaefer unless the board has any questions for him.
What kind of landscaping are we proposing around it?
On the plan at this point in time, not as much as will be after Ryan gets through doing it administratively later on. We do have some more buffer planting to put around the site that, as he pointed out in his letter, so we defer to his wisdom on that, and we don't know exactly what that is yet. So through the process back and forth with his office, we'll arrive at something that satisfies him, and I believe will satisfy the board also.
But we'll agree to put in whatever landscape your engineer decides upon at their sole discretion.
Is there some requirement from fine lands?
Well, sheet 6 has a legend of what plantings and where, and you can see exactly where. Right now, the landscaping plan, it's pretty much all over the back of the public residential property. We talked about they're gonna have them along San Francisco Avenue, but, and then you have some in the corner of that public terrace as well.
And anything on 330?
Well, there will be now, because we're gonna be removing some of this concrete here.
Right.
We don't wanna create an illusion that this is part of the driveway.
Right, well, a couple of things we talked about were that space creates a couple problems. Number one, that's part of the driveway. Number two, it's probably a site triangle, so if there's a large bag or something out there, trying to pull out of the rear, you have to be out across the sidewalk. So by eliminating that spot, adding a little landscape island there, another landscape island there, another landscape island to the 12th terrace entrance. And it's mostly concrete for the aprons otherwise.
So are we talking about low plantings and
Yes.
just as an example, the Walgreens in town, besides it not being maintained, the shrubs have grown up, they're 2 or 3 feet tall and taller now, and traffic coming out of the terrace, can't see going down the pike, and something needs to be put in it that doesn't need a lot of maintenance. It's not gonna grow crazy and cause a problem later down the line.
Yeah, all the ones up by Route 30, they're calling out as compact, 8 18 to 24 inches.
And they will need maintenance, they will need to be trimmed, you can't let them go. I wanna say too, that the landscaping we're providing along the back of the building does encompass trees and shrubs.
And just so we're clear, right now, this is all concrete, what we're proposing is landscaping here, landscaping in the middle, and landscaping over here in this other edge, so that it's better defined, and you actually have some landscaping on the White Horse Pike, which
And that actually creates a public safety benefit in helping to define where the driveways are.
Correct. So you can't just all pull in like it is right now.
So the delivery truck and the recycled trash truck will share the same loading area?
Yes, yes. That's where the trash enclosure will be right here, so the trash truck will come in, pick up the trash and recycling and be able to get out either way, and also the loading zone will be there.
And will it be a Wawa quality trash enclosure?
Well, yes, in fact, I believe it's gotta be fireproof, so it only needs one
Well,
material.
fireproof could mean cyclone fence.
No, it'll be block or concrete.
And plenty of bollards, because if you got trucks backing in there,
Fully get it, yes.
okay?
And in fact,
It will be,
material would the board prefer that?
If you tell,
Go look
Dollar
at
General
Wawa.
was a perfect example of a trash enclosure. Dollar General, they just built one up a couple years ago, and Wawa's just building it now.
Well, the old wall wanted them.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they just
rebuilt that several years ago.
We'll work with your engineer to make sure it's, have him give us, tell us what he wants there, we'll put it there, and we'll make it the same.
Because we've learned some things over the years, and if you go by some of the commercial establishments in town where there was cyclone fence, it's now ready for the junkyard.
of course, right.
Now,
Even with bollards, because they just push the bollards over right into it.
we'll work with your engineer to give you the same product that you.
And I have determined how to design a bollard that you can't knock down.
Our client wants to make a significant investment into this site, clean it up, make it nicer, and that would only, if we're putting a new building up, we might as well put up a nice enclosure, the same thing that you want there. That's fine.
So if I just jump on the Jack's point on the landscaping. I said it, I don't know if you're, I prefer concrete, because you don't have to worry about it growing, you don't have to worry about trash getting in all of it. Flower beds are always full of cigarette butts and trash, and nobody ever cleans them up. Everybody comes here and says that they're going to, and I'm sure that their intentions are when they come here, but it's not the way it always works out. Ryan, is there a way that we can maybe shift some of this landscaping to the back property along the residential side, and
Well, that's,
try to clean up the curb side?
that's what the original plan is. The plan you got in your packet shows all that landscaping along the back on sheet 6.
Yes, it's concentrated there.
I see a little bit up on 12th Terrace, which is.
Yeah, up in the corner there, a couple little bushes there, and that's kind of what we were talking about, is adding bushes along San Francisco Avenue just to provide landscaping along the street there.
That'd be in the right of way, it's still R18.
Yeah, right. And then eliminating the first parking spot at the corner of San Francisco and Route 30, just because there's conflicts there, and then maybe putting similar landscaping as on the 12th Terrace corner on that corner. So you have the corners, they were talking about maybe adding a little bit in the middle, just to sort of better delineate the driveways, just so it's not, all concrete all the way across. So you have, a little corner, a little strip there, a little corner there, everything along the back, and then some bushes along San Francisco.
I believe your judgment, but
I know what you're saying. Flower beds and things like that always end up.
rather than stamped concrete or something that just makes it look a little bit cleaner, nicer than bushes down the way get taken care of.
A lot of times with, because you mentioned Dollar General, I represent that does a lot of Dollar General is that, one of the ways, that we get around that is, again, we have a landscape under contract to make sure that it's properly maintained. My client has agreed to, have a landscape under contract to make sure that this landscaping is maintained each year and the property is maintained. Again, because I'm gonna put up this much money for a new building and have crappy landscaping around the area. If he was taking the existing building and just looking to do something, well, then again.
You mentioned Dollar General, we've got the grant is 3 foot tall, so I don't know what landscape they have. but-
I will tell you this much, it all depends on the developer. There are several developers that do the Dollar Generals. I can tell you the one that I represent has never had that issue. But again, there's multiple of those.
One other significant issue or a factoid in this particular case is of the 2 on the weekdays and 3 employees on the weekends, one of them is the owner.
Yes.
So it's not an off-site, vacant type business, it's hands-on.
A lot of that is code enforcement too. I mean,
I know.
you can only take so many pictures and send it to enforcement, and good luck trying to find somebody to listen to you, Dollar General,
Dollar General doesn't care.
because they don't care about
You
anything.
can write a ticket and it'll be handled in your joint municipal court.
Yeah, our client, who to give it to, that's,
Oh, yeah, you'll be inside the building.
yeah, exactly.
There'll be no outside storage of anything, carts,
No.
anything like that?
No, no outside storage of anything.
How about trash cans outside the building?
No, we have a trash enclosure,
And then everything else will be indoors.
more than ample size.
Yeah, we'll be fine.
The
There will
only,
be.
the only reason he asked that is because if you go to, you sell lottery tickets too. Here's what they do, they scratch and they throw.
Oh.
Like, if there was an outside trash can that people could use, that would.
That's why I'm asking
Do you want us to put one?
I think there should be one.
Yes.
Because if they don't have someplace to throw it, it winds up down my street with the
Fine.
little
Then
nips and the beer
We,
bottles.
we will add an outdoor trash can and,
Walk down 12th Terrace and go half the block, and there's 9,000 miniature bottles of liquor. So whatever time it takes to take the lid off, drink it, and throw two of them away, that's about where they stop throwing them away up the alley. And I'm not exaggerating about it.
Flavored vodka is the drink of choice.
So,
But again, we'll
trash
add-
can on the 12th Terrace side would be.
On the plus side, their dumpster would be like, might not like a house.
look, again,
Yeah.
yeah, we'll add two. Then, we'll add one to the 12 Terrace side, and then we can also add one to, like, around the San Francisco Avenue side. So that's covered on both sides. If someone's gonna come this way, or use a pedestrian walkway, if we have it here or have it here, they have a trash can here. If someone's gonna walk towards 12 Terrace, and there's a trash can on that side. And if they make it past that trash can, and they decide they wanna throw it in a trash recycling enclosure, which currently there isn't one out there now. They
That
can-
gate will be shut, so they won't be able to use that
Yeah.
dumpster.
They'll toss it over.
Oh, yeah.
If I know, if it's anything like any other place, I'll just toss it over.
Any other?
Just one last question, I know you said it, I think, what's the square footage of the existing building?
The existing building is 3,000, hold on one second. I didn't get that number. 3,910 square feet.
That's the existing liquor store, that one built from this.
No, I believe that's the existing liquor store. Looks like only ground level, I don't think it's
First drawing said the whole
Yeah,
It's all.
the entire building's
The entire building, 3,910.
3,910.
But we're actually decreasing your building coverage from 21.6% to 19.1%. But remember, we're taking the existing residential and moving it to the second story instead of having it on the ground level. So the footprint, we're actually decreasing the building coverage, your impervious coverage on site between the building and the landscaping. Bringing it actually, I mean, it was conforming already, you allow 30%, I believe, in that zone, but we're actually decreasing it. Do you guys have any other questions for Mr. Schaefer? With that, my next witness is Mr. Thomas Sindrain, my registered architect. Mr. Sindrain has not testified before this board before, so I will briefly put on his qualifications. Just explain to the board briefly your education and then how many other boards you've testified before, or how many times.
Graduate of Syracuse University School of Architecture, June 1975, when I first licensed in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in 1982. Licensed in the state of New Jersey in 1987. I have been with the firm, been in business for 35 years. I've appeared in front of most every board in Acme County, except for Galloway zoning plan. I have to be a member of the Galloway zoning board. And never part of the planning board for almost every other board in the two counties.
Board recognizes
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Can you please explain to the board what the exterior of the new building will look like?
The owners want to do a two-story building that's from front to rear in height. They want to do a variety of metal roof, metal siding. They want to do warm grays. We have warm gray stone, a wainscot across the front here. We have windows across the front. We have windows for the mezzanine and the second floor. And we have some warm gray metal siding on the front of the building and on the side also. We also have on the front of the building, we have the projecting signs. There are no canopies proposed for this. What you see here is, I want to do something a little bit decorative instead of just having a sign sticking out the front of the building. That's why I did projecting, as Mr. Schaefer said, that you can see it coming down the road in either direction. And then I also, if you see the front here, in the center, and over here on the right or the left side elevation, I have a little flagpole and a little pizzazz to the front of the building. It's tilted out. So again, instead of just a plain Jane sign, let's add a little pizzazz to it. I'm proposing to have some red accents for the windows and for the overhang at the front. People must be dry when they come out of the building. So this is, it may appear to be that there are awnings, but there are not. These are just tie rods to support the building structure here.
So there are no metal awnings.
There are no metal awnings proposed.
Now, the question that came up, and can you please explain the screening of the HVAC units that are on the platform?
We have the HVAC units in the rear here and screened. So we're aware that here on this side and here on this side, and here is the rear view down here. Yeah, this is the rear view right here. But that is the rear of the building.
Right, and that's the rear.
Yeah, that's the rear.
And this is just the rear.
That's
Where they're gonna be. There's one platform in the rear.
One platform in the rear. And the reason the platform is so large is that we have to deal with the air conditioning for the building, for the store portion. We have to deal with the air conditioning for the residential unit, and we also have to deal with the refrigeration for at least one or more walk-in boxes inside the store itself. And we want to get it up off the ground to keep it from potentially being installed.
What type of fence are you proposing? You said that
We
it's gonna be
want to have,
screened by
we want to have an open fence, not so much that you can see it, but so we can get the air flow through there, because these condensers require air to circulate through it so that it can dissipate the heat that's generated.
Okay, what's the height of the fence?
I believe it's going to be approximately 3 feet high, the enclosure around and the air conditioning condenser is usually about 30 inches to 36 inches high. So you won't be able to see them, from the ground except looking through the fence itself.
Can you please also explain the interior layout of the zoning, both the liquor store and 3-bedroom apartment?
But as I said, we have a 2-story building. The bulk of the first floor here is all for the liquor store. We do have a rear stair to get up to the second floor. We also are proposing to have a mezzanine in the first section here, and that's going to be open to the store below. With this high ceiling space in here, we can put in high racks. If you go to Home Depot or Lowe's, you can see that their storage is way up high. And that's just, Dave will figure out how to manipulate the merchandise that's in there. And the mezzanine is office and storage, and we have a 3-bedroom, 2-bath apartment in the rear of that.
That's all the questions I have for Mr. Cedrane, unless the board has any questions for him regarding.
Another question, the floor for the living space, what's kind of material is that?
The floor for the living space?
Like the actual, between the levels, is it concrete or is it?
No,
lightweight construction?
Not to be, it has not been determined yet. I mean, this is gonna be type 5B construction, if you're familiar with that, and type 5B, for those that are not familiar with building code, means you can use any material you want. So there's no limitations on, that it has to be combustible or non-combustible. That has not, I mean, because of the size, the two-story nature of the entire building, it's gonna be, a steel superstructure, arched, which is typical for buildings like this. And then the floor structure here, or here and here, I don't know yet what it's gonna be.
Okay.
But it will have to be separated, fire separated, one from the other by the building code.
Will it be a egress from the apartment on the outside or just the inside?
Just, you come down the stairs here, and the door is right here on the outside. You're only required to have one door, so that's, two means of egress is not required.
You mentioned air conditioning on the back.
Yes.
What's separating the property line now?
Excuse me?
What's separating the property line now?
No, yeah. Andy, you want to say? Sure.
Is there a fence that separates the property line?
No, there's no fence.
Are you
There's
proposing
nothing.
putting something between you and the neighbor? Or-
Yes.
At this point in time, we have landscaping. If fencing becomes a conversation tonight, we're open to that conversation.
I don't know who lives next door, I don't think I don't look at it.
Well, after the professionals are done, we'll hear from the public. Good question. Any further questions for the architect?
That's all the witnesses I have for this evening so far. Of course, based on public comment, the board desires to hear any further testimony, reserve the right to recall that if necessary.
Ryan, did you want?
So we go to our report, just starting on the top of page 2, sort of already covered the, maximum building coverage will be the improvement from what we've got now. Their setbacks, they do variance for the front from 12 and from 30. In the rear yard setback, but it's a significant improvement. Right now, you've got a 6.4 off, 6.4 feet, separation from the property line, where they would have 15 to the structure and 10 to that elevated HVAC equipment platform. Let's see what else. Oh, in the front, they would go from the encroaching into the right of way to right at the property line, which is also an improvement. If you eliminate that parking space, it'll actually peel it back another 8 or 9 feet. Let's see. Site plan standards. So we talked about the entrances and exits. It's almost impossible to have 50 feet separation. I'll show it at one driveway, given the lots are only 50 feet wide. So that's one variance they need. Was that actually shielded? We talked about that. On-street parking, the truck loading space. The ordinance requires a 10-foot by 45-foot space. We have in the past entertained smaller spaces that were appropriate for business and deliveries that anticipate. They provide a test whether they deliveries from 25-foot trucks, and provide a plus or minus 30-foot loading space that we share between vehicle or deliveries and trash pickup. So that is a variance that we'll have to entertain and grant it. Approved this evening. We talked about the landscape strip along the property line. They're proposing to install landscaping buffer along San Francisco Avenue in the right of way. That's the detail that will be granted by the board. Let's see. The parking spaces, they're divided 22 at the end of the day, where 28 are required. They get another 16, so it is an improvement. Signs, they do a whole bunch of sign relief, but I sort of try to wrap up that section under section 170-71 on page 5 of my report. The ordinance is really written around the retail commercial zone, and the sign ordinance applies to both that and the highway commercial. So as you read through it, it's talking about signs projecting at a 90 degree and not being at angles and various other requirements that are really applicable to your downtown. If someone's walking down the sidewalk, you don't want a projecting sign that comes out at an angle from one corner of the building to the other. you want a nice uniform where people have signs sticking out, it's just right above their entry when you're coming in, right as you're walking on the sidewalk. So no need relief in order to instruct that type of sign, but again, the way the ordinance is really focused on retail commercial. So keep that in mind as you consider that. Let's see. They did address the 170, 110 about the pedestrian access to the store. The plans didn't show anything, but I think ideally, the city would want to see some pedestrian access either from 30 or Francisco Avenue, so somebody walking on the sidewalk doesn't have to just, run across the parking lot if it isn't to get to the store. In the landscaping section, we were talking about non-combustible materials for the trash enclosure. I'll provide details from Dollar General. I think they're a very big model for the trash. Just to maintain it better than they do that. Let's see. Architectural design standards. So the awnings, you have like a light canopy that's sort of projecting out over the sidewalk, over the entrance on the corner. So that's sort of what I was interpreting as an awning. There's not really a direct fit in the ordinance, but it projects out from the building and it provides coverage out over it. So I think just an abundance of caution would be easier for the board to just grant the variance for that, consider that an awning and it's made out of metal. And as for that architectural design feature, it just provides a little cover over the building. And that style has sort of made it a bit of a comeback over McDonald's, just did something similar to what we did there over the last year or so. Okay, so the HVAC platform, I brought that up and what would cover around it, because when you put HVAC equipment up next to a building and then you elevate, the sound tends to project. So that was my concern, and that was the reason that I flagged and sort of asked for you to do a good description of what you propose to screen it up there. When things are down on the ground and you have landscaping surrounding it, you can sort of absorb a lot of that sound. But when it's up over everything and it's right up against another building, all your sound is just going to reflect away from the building. So they sort of describe what they're proposing to do there. It's up to the board what you think, whether you share my concerns. They radically address that. It's just something to think about.
This will have a solid cover around, correct?
Well, you described it not as solid, but
It has to be open so that we get some airflow.
right. That's what I suspected when I was writing the report. Because when you have HVAC equipment, you can put it in a completely fenced area, but usually you have to be 5 or 6 feet from that fence so that you have sufficient air circulation so you can cool the unit. So I kind of knew that it would be impossible to have a solid fence there that close to the units that have to be, have a pretty large airspace. Again, the concerns that you're going to reflect off the building and just go right towards the neighbors there.
Well, keep in mind, Ryan, that if we have a 50% open or 25% opening fence, so we're going to have 75% or 50%, and so it will contain the sound pretty well, as opposed to just having landscaping, which the sound will just go everywhere.
Well, it may be, I see you have an existing tree there that's proposed to remain. Maybe we could shift some of the taller vegetation to that location to try to help prevent some of that sound movement to the neighboring properties.
Sure, we're fine with that, we'll agree with that.
I think that would certainly help.
It's not gonna bother a neighbor, it's gonna bother the neighborhood.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're right, sound tends to project a lot more when you separate from the ground. So
If you're talking a 3-foot platform, most condensers are roughly 32 inches.
Right.
Which is about 6 foot, you're gonna need at least a 6 foot, 8 foot type arborvitae or something of that nature that's gonna give that big cushion. And that's why it's about the fence, because, the platform is 10 feet off the ground.
Well, right.
Oh, I thought it was 3 feet off the ground.
No, they've got a platform, they're showing a platform,
5 feet.
it's on the architectural plans. They have a platform 10 feet off the ground in the back, and have the units up on a 10-foot, the bottom of the units would be 10 feet off the ground.
How wide do you have to make each platform?
They-
The wall area.
Something
let's just talk.
So that's another 5 feet.
I mean, it sounds to me like this is a metal panel with small holes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I agree, like I say, you gotta project it up and down instead of out.
They might have to go up to the property line, which I don't really, I would personally would rather see.
Actually, we just,
You're talking 4 units, you got two refrigerating units?
we decided to, change the fence instead of it being open, we'll keep it, use sound attenuation panels and keep it entirely enclosed.
Will we need to potentially project it farther off the building to accomplish that?
No, we'll be okay.
You think so?
Yeah.
Fine, okay.
They're perforated, the sound attenuation panels are designed just for this
But it's
use.
entirely enclosed, and we'll agree to have, you want to put some of the taller vegetation out there to your satisfaction, as I said, we should.
Yeah, we just sort of, I don't even know if you need more, just sort of regroup, so.
That's fine.
Right.
You know, sort of concentrate around.
So how do they do like other municipalities?
Well, that's, I think what they propose is probably this, is he's proposing a sound attenuating panel that lets airflow through, but has a lot of sound deadening materials.
Around this platform of the,
Yes, entirely around the platform, we're gonna put these sound attenuation panels, keep it entirely enclosed.
So I think that's a good compromise, because you don't have to make the platforms larger, but it won't absorb the sound. Yeah, that's really up to you guys, I just wanted to bring it up for discussion.
Where's, do you have air conditioning there now, your units?
Yes,
Where are they located?
they inside.
You're-
And the they have window units, all window units.
Oh,
That's all
okay.
we did. Great. So we'll do that. And you did address security measures, they did say that we are putting something, cameras underneath. I believe we have a program to register them with the police department, does that sound correct? Lisa?
Yeah, yeah,
So,
it's not really up and running yet, but the more information we get, the better.
well, even, yeah, I know the police department has an alarm with cameras, so they know when things happen, they know who to go ask and who to look for, so if you wouldn't mind.
We'll provide that information to the police department, that's fine. It's actually run through a private company right now, so we'll keep it under contract with a private company, we'll give the police department the information.
Yeah, that'd be helpful. And then maybe get through the general.
If you want to skip that, we agree to every one of them.
Fair enough. So does anyone have any questions about any of the general comments? How's that?
Very good.
If not, that sort of concludes my report.
Is there not a better solution than a 24-inch white thermoplastic stop bar?
You know, say no, we don't want it.
That's the way.
But it
No,
should be fine.
That's the standard.
Yeah.
That is the standard. So we comply with, we will comply with that. The painted bars don't last very long.
Yeah, none of them last, especially in this winter time when you go to plow snow, they wind up.
That's the biggest disadvantage of thermoplastic, it's so thick, but it does tend to last longer than the epoxy tubes. Thermoplastic's not like a chance of this. So. Yeah, so that's it, unless you have any questions.
Any questions from the board for Ryan or any professionals?
Those wall signs, are they 4 feet or 4 feet 4 inches? I saw.
4 feet 4 inches.
4 feet 4 inches. They're all 4 feet 4 inches. And then the projecting signs, that's considered 2 technically?
Well, the projecting sign is 10 feet long and projects out by 5 feet, so it's V-shaped. With each side of the V being 10, and then projecting out by 5
They're
feet.
it's 80 square feet total, does that sound right?
The total square footage of all of them is 160 square feet.
Right, so 2 wall mounted or 40 each.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah.
that's about 80, yeah, pounds. And I guess just the number, it's like 5 square feet.
No, well, not even that.
Open it up to the public.
One question, to maintenance the, air conditioner condensers, what do you have to go through the window?
No, you're gonna have to put a ladder up to get up there.
Open to the public, anyone from the public?
I in the podium?
Sure. If you can speak from your seat, it's up to you.
State your name and address, and I can swear you.
Erin Roush, R-E-U-S-C-H. I live at 126 San Francisco.
And Ms. Roush, do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I live at 126 San Francisco, kind of catty corner from the current property. My bedroom is in the corner closest to the property. I already have blackout curtains, which are practically useless, because that house has 2 windows on the corner. Like most normal houses where the windows face the wall, or face the roads, I have 1 window here and 1 window here that face Route 30. I already have light blinding from Red Barn. So the fact that this parking lot is going to be facing my bedroom is very concerning to me as far as lights go. The entire front of the building is going to be facing my house. Plus all of the parking spots. Well, not all, but predominantly a good portion of the parking will be facing
So as far as the
my
door is
direction.
facing the air, it's quite
Where exactly is your house, man?
behind your closest pregnancy post.
My house is right here. My bedroom is right here.
Do you have the corner locked then?
This is the
The second
entry.
building.
No, the pregnancy center is right here.
Okay.
Right.
But my house is right here. And my bedroom is about right here. Because I can see like where the corner is. The corner of that house is not far. Like I can see the corner quite easily. And Red Barn's lights are on all night, extraordinarily bright and already shining. And since this is the entry, I expect the front of, because this is technically the front, this is the entrance. This is going to be very well lit. This is going to shine into my bedroom and my living room. So there's no fence blocking the lights from any cars going in, and any lights on the front of this building are at night going to shine directly into, not direct, but are going to be very bright in my house. Particularly my bedroom. And then I also read about the air conditioning unit, which was, could be loud, that's what
Can you address the lighting?
Well, Andy, you wanna address the lighting real quick? The lighting on the front of the building around the entrance where I did call it a canopy, I guess, I'm sorry, so that's why it looks like a canopy. We'll have down lighting facing straight down, recessed lighting like cans, facing straight down. So they will not be wall packs, if you will, facing out into the parking lot, which do create a lot of glare. And we do have a light post here that's shining straight down, and it'll be shielded to prevent light from leaving the property, which is one of the requirements that Ryan also asked for.
Will there be security lighting like Red Barn asked that points?
No, that's exactly what we don't have.
Yeah, we're not gonna have any, we don't want that.
We do have pole mounted lights that are facing straight down, and on the side of the lights, the shoe boxes, if you will, there will be shades on them to keep the light from spilling beyond the property line. So it's just shining straight down. We don't need to light the neighborhood up, we just want to light the parking lot up.
What about the cars pulling into the parking spot shining?
They have headlights, and there's,
Well, we talked about planting landscaping.
yeah, we're gonna be planting some landscaping along here too.
Okay, how tall is that going to be?
Well, it's probably starting out not real tall, but it'll grow. So the kind of landscaping we're specifying will probably take several years to get to the point that it blocks the headlights.
Could we not put a fence up instead?
That'd be in the front yard technically.
Yeah. Can you put a fence in the front yard?
And keep relief from the board, you know.
Well, I mean, what about a 4-foot fence? Is that part of it?
Well, I mean, you'd be putting it on the front property line.
Yeah, literally.
Without having to dig through the ordinance, I'm gonna say you probably would.
Okay.
I mean,
4 foot.
I think,
I would suspect.
would you prefer landscaping?
I would,
It's up to
yeah.
I guess
it's
as-
really a matter of preference.
the professional. I mean,
I mean, I understand your concern right away, you know, vegetation's not gonna do much because they're just gonna plant whatever, you know, is available, it's gonna take some time to grow in. From an aesthetic standpoint, it would be kind of unusual to have a fence along the frontage right on the property line, from one of the residential streets. But, yeah, I mean, that's ultimately up to you guys.
Looking on the map, the property line for this property and the Price Pregnancy place line up. So when people do, when they turn into their parking spots, the light will cross into your property, but if they sit there with their car running, it'll shine actually straight across the street to them.
Right, right. And that's why with accordance with your engineer, we were gonna propose the landscaping all down here
Yes,
to
if
his
they turn
satisfaction.
into their parking spot, there could be someone's building, but I don't think just sitting in a parking spot is not
That's
gonna
correct.
shine at your.
Yeah.
Can you repeat your hours of operation to make this have that?
It's 10 to 9 p.m.,
10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
6 days a week, and the 7th day Sunday, it's 10 to 7.
Is that what your hours are now?
10 to 8 p.m. now we're doing.
Yeah.
We're closing at 8, and we're closing at 7 in Sundays.
Okay. Just curious.
We can make that some pretty dense barberry and stuff working along there.
Yeah, I mean, you can certainly concentrate.
Create a hedgerow.
Especially along the back corner.
No, to create a hedgerow.
Right.
So,
And we're actually reducing our hours of operation, just so that we're currently aware. We're gonna Monday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 9 p.m. Currently, Monday through Saturday, we're at 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. So we're opening an hour later and closing an hour earlier. And then on Sunday, we are from same time frame, 10 to 7.
So, ma'am, the red barn and that property there was built and the lighting and all that was done before any of the rules and regulations that they abide by now, especially the type of lighting, how the lighting is directed.
I know,
So unfortunately, you're stuck with what's there, but
right.
I'm certain that they have complied with the latest modern lighting that is not gonna project anything out of the parking lot. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to stay within the property line, and the new lighting, I think, does that pretty well. The cars, we're not gonna be able to do a lot about that, but
We really can't. It might take a couple of years to really block the headlights, but we can do a hedgerow to block the light.
I think working with your engineer will make sure we'll get something that works.
anyone else from the public? Second call. Close the public portion then, if there's no other comments. Any other comments, questions from the board? Are we ready for a motion? We do anything else?
Not just respectfully request that the board grant our application for preliminary and final site plan, variance and waiver approval to construct a 4,220 square foot liquor store and a 1,040 square foot second story 3-bedroom apartment.
When would they propose to start construction?
We want to complete, we wish to open it by Thanksgiving. Before Thanksgiving, yes.
That's pushing.
If he can get his contractors and materials out there in time, I think, I would say, I think that's wishful thinking. But I will take from that he wants to have this up and running as soon as possible.
So I can help frame a motion. There's several variants and waivers. I'm gonna summarize to the extent I missed one. We have Ryan's report. He summarized at the beginning, but and then I'll put notes of conditions that I'll go through. So what we need is a motion for preliminary and final major site plan approval. There's several variances that deal with that. In the front yard setback along 12 terrace of 34.5 feet, or 50 feet is required. And you have the same front yard setback to the Waivers pipe there. They're 37.5 feet there, but 50 feet is required. There's a rear yard setback of 15 feet, 30 feet is required. The perimeter buffering is required around all property lines of 5 feet. We heard the testimony that they vary at different spots, so that's, they're gonna need a variance for that. The front parking area is at 0 feet long, the White Horse Pike, previously encroached. It's supposed to be set back 50 feet. Parking at 22 spaces, where the requirement 28 total spaces are required. The loading space size is required to be 10 by 45 feet. They, in the depth, they're approximately 30 feet. Ryan also noted that what he called that awning, so they're not allowed to be constructed on metal. So we're going to grant relief to allow that. The signage, go to the signage variances. Again, Mr. Shaver has it spelled out, and Ryan has it spelled out in his report, but the aggregate of all signs is they have 160 square feet, 25 square feet permitted. The wall signs, they're allowed 40 square feet, they have 80 square feet of wall signs. They're only allowed one sign, they have 4 signs. Projecting signs are not to exceed 16 square feet, and they're at 40 and 40 for each panel. The height of wall signs shall not exceed 2 feet, and they're at 4 feet 4 inches. There's also a variance from the angle of the projecting signs. They're required to project at 90 degrees, and they don't meet that. And then projecting signs technically are not permitted where commercial use abuts a residential zone. And again, they have that projecting sign of those 2 panels there. A couple of design waivers. Those are the variances. The design waivers, entrances and exits are less than 50 feet from the driveway edge to the nearest right-of-way line. The 2 driveways are proposed along the White Horse Pike. I think there was one more.
So the off-street parking in the front yard.
Yeah, off-street parking in the front yard is the other waiver, and then the landscape strip I included as a variance technically, but I got that. And then the conditions I noted is they'll provide pedestrian access as discussed to be submitted and reviewed by the city council at his discretion. Planning along, provide some planning along San Francisco Avenue in the right of way, again, to be approved in Ryan's discretion, as well as the other landscaping on the site. Trash enclosure, Ryan's going to get them some samples, and they'll submit that for approval in Ryan's discretion. They're going to add 2 outdoor trash cans, one in the area of 12 Terrace, one in the area of San Francisco Avenue. They'll add sound attenuation panels around the HVAC platform, and they'll concentrate some of the higher landscaping in that area. Again, Ryan will do that at his discretion. And they'll provide a security info, private security, but they'll still provide the information to the police department. And then, anything else in Mr. McGowan's report, if there's general comments, they said it agrees all of them. So any conditions Mr. McGowan unless otherwise addressed tonight. Applicant will comply with any representations made during the course of the hearing, and then they're subject to any other necessary outside approvals. And again, we need a motion, a second, and a roll call.
Somebody offer a motion? For a second?
Second.
Motion second, roll call.
Mayor Gentile? Yes. Mr. Chambers?
Yes.
Mr. Peterson?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Bard?
Yes.
Dennis McKenna?
Yes.
Michael McKenna?
Yes.
Mrs. Torres? Yes.
Chairman, members of the board, thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time and consideration.
Yeah, thank you. Best of luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. old business?
Do they have some now?
Any comments from the public? Comments from the board, mayor, anything?
I hired a Mike Stockless.
I know Jack from there.
He's in now Thursday.
I haven't seen him in a long
And we lost our utility clerk. And we
And so
hired.
I said,
John.
This site, and you have to draw. And 2 weeks later, they tore out everything and planted this stuff.
That goes from Easterwick to the lake. There was some storm sewer plans that were finished by PME, the engineering firm, and they have completed the permit that's going to be submitted to the DEP. And they're working in conjunction with the town also. We did have a couple ordinances at meeting, short-term rentals were shut down. We entertained proposing allowing short-term rentals in Culver City, which I was against, and I just think that, like the bank case, would you want to live next to an Airbnb? My answer is no. So I'm thankful that did not pass. And we did get an ordinance that I had tried to get many years ago, and Jack, you were prior on council and tried to do the same years ago, for no K-turns and no left turns into parking lots on Philadelphia Avenue, and no U-turns, which we already have. So that ordinance did pass, so there's no left turns into parking on Philadelphia Avenue. There are no K-turns, where you come back out, obviously, and then no U-turns. So that's I think, a great thing.
And the police will enforce that? The
Yeah.
police will enforce that.
Well, it's just,
Hey,
they,
that is the most annoying thing.
yeah, I know, and someone's gonna be hurt, because it's just a matter of time, we're just blessed that nobody's gotten hurt yet. So then,
I've changed my position, Lisa, because I make a U-turn and a K-turn.
I know you got used to it, right?
And
I
any
know,
chance I get, I do it.
because you're allowed to get away with it.
Not anymore. You're never gonna stop them, and you're never gonna enforce it, but
I know.
God bless you.
I agree. Cleanup day, May 7th, it's live this year, after 2 years of being virtual, through emails and pictures and whatnot. So far not such a big response, but if anybody would like to clean up, give me a call. And Arbor Day is a celebration in Lincoln Park, Friday the 30th, over at 5. And that's all I have.
Any other comments from the board, members? No, motion to adjourn?
Move.
I'm sorry.
Move. So move.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you, folks. Thanks, Donna.
When's the next meeting?
This is Friday.
Well, yesterday was the meeting.